Hello, bonjour and welcome to your new Bona Private Wines video. I hope you're enjoying a beautiful beginning of summer, and yes, not only is it the best season in the year weather-wise now, but it's also time to receive some outstanding wines, your new selection, wines that we've selected for you to go with your barbecues and your salads, but also of course a few wines that you can hold on to and cellar so you're ready for the cold days of winter as well. You can mature some cautiously for a few years until they reach further perfection as well. So this quarter we've gone back to Italy to pick your wine selection because it's a country that we simply love, and it's a country you love too because it's a country that makes outstandingly diverse wine. So a country that has so many hidden gems that we love to find for you and bring to you. Wines from small producers that care to deliver the real essence of the terroir, of their land and traditions. So we have 6 wines as usual, whose origins stretch from the very south of Italy, from the island of Sicily in the Mediterranean, to wines coming from the very far north and the iconic wine region called Piedmont on the rising slopes of the Alps. Of course, we'll stop by in the center of beautiful Italy in Tuscany as well. Let's go together for a wine tour of Italy. So let's start to the very south on this big volcanic island located at the tip of the Italian boot in the middle of sunny Mediterranean Sea, namely Sicily. Sicily has one of the oldest winemaking traditions in Italy, as archaeologists have found evidence that the locals were already drinking wine as far back as the 17th century BC. So way before the Romans, of course, and in fact the ancient Romans had already recognized Sicily as being particularly suitable for viticulture. So the wine we have here though is the exact in-between the Sicilian winemaking tradition and a more modern international approach. It is indeed made from half of local Sicilian grapes. I'm tempted to say Sicilian because that's how the Italians say it. Sicilian grapes, which are iconic here and virtually only found on this island, namely Nero d'Avola and Nerello Mascalese. The other half of the wine is made from international Bordeaux grape varieties, French grape varieties that you know, Cabernet Sauvignon and Merlot. Now, the character of the Sicilian heritage, the finesse of the French influence are combined in this wine on paper. We'll find out when we taste it. For the reference, Papios, the name of this wine, was given a 98 points out of 100 by locally famous wine critic, Italian wine critic Luca Maroni, who called that one of this year's best wine from Sicily and all of Italy in 2018, this very vintage. So let's see what it tastes like. And as expected from southern and the very warm region of Sicily, we're here with a really dense wine, an extremely dark color. This is a 2018 vintage, so it's a 3-year-old wine already, looking really dark and very youthful, we would say. Let's sniff. Wow, yeah, straight away from the very first sniff, you can definitely sense the power, the intensity and the generosity of a wine that's made under the hot sun of the Mediterranean climate. It's got heaps of plum and prune, in particular mixed with berry jam, very generous and warming, blackberry as well to the nose. Yet I'd say the signature here is really the clear earthiness and the spicy dark chocolate aromas that it's got. It's got an explosive ripe fruit character as well that is dominant, but the background is clearly filled with earthiness, and I'd say it's associated with dark roasted cocoa or cocoa beans, cocoa powder that has a bit of an earthy character to it. It's sweet smelling overall because it's so fruity and intense, but also earthy and a little charcoaly as well, a little ashy as well, and it's got a clear chili-like spiciness. It smells like chilies, really, and it reminds me of the aromas you get from a chili-infused bar of dark chocolate. If you've ever had one of those, it smells like it's going to be really, really spicy. But let's taste. Wow, and indeed this is an extremely generous wine and extremely explosive. I generally like to go from the lighter styles to the bigger ones when I review a series of wines like this, but here I wanted to finish on the northern wines because wines such as the Barolos are among Italy's superstar names, and I wanted to finish on those. But this is probably the bigger wine here. You get such an explosion of sensations on your palate, and all the prune liqueur goodness literally bursts on your senses. There's a sense that it tastes a little like a prune liqueur, really, but with the freshness of berry flavors that are added, augmented by them as well. Huge concentration of acidity as well that allows it to feel not heavy at all, but rather lively and lighter in at least its liveliness. Huge flavors of dark chocolate indeed, and coffee as well, some lifted mintiness to it, and certainly it is spicy and almost hot from all of those chili-like flavors that I was already detecting on the nose. They're certainly present on the palate as well. So this is an extremely generous wine. I love the abundant spiciness and the grip that it has on the palate, the strong personality from those local Sicilian grapes, but it's mellowed and rounded up by the rich and fine texture of the French Cabernet and the oily, ripe cherry smoothness from the Merlot as well. So the whole really forms a distinctive balance for lovers of big reds indeed, with this extra 5% magic to them as well. A big wine, something different that you normally experience because it's from Sicily. Certainly a wine to pair with strongly favored dishes, not one to go with delicate dishes, not the fish, not the creamy pasta, but rather with the bold spicy pasta dishes like the all'arrabbiata sauce that is quite spicy, or the grilled meats and the steaks. A wine not necessarily intended to be aged for a long time, but it'll hold up definitely for quite a few years. So drink now until 2028. And from Sicily we're moving a little north in our tour of Italy, and of course, this being a wine tour, we had to stop by in historic Tuscany, or Toscana, as the Italians would say, the region that rhymes with Renaissance, Da Vinci, Florence, Siena, Dante Alighieri, and many more illustrious names like Chianti if we're talking historic wine in particular. We'll get to tasting two different Chiantis later on, but for the moment, now let's have a look at this wine that is called Maghero, Toscana Rosso. So this is a wine made in Tuscany near the region of Chianti, but not under the Chianti regulations that can be sometimes a little bit more restrictive because they are very traditional. So this is more of a super Tuscan approach that combines the traditional grapes of the local Chianti blend, namely Sangiovese, of course the archetypal Tuscan grape, but also the local Cannaiolo and Colorino, together with a touch of a bit of Cabernet and a bit of Merlot as well. So a little similar approach to the Sicilian wine we just tasted. For the wine's story on this one, in short, winery owners and brothers, they called Cesare and Gabriele Viviani, a Tuscan family of winemakers, they have dedicated this Tuscan wine, this label, to their grandfather named Magherini, and it's in fact the Magherini family crest that is featured on the label. So this is a wine with a moderately dense color, but a nice, vibrant red, gorgeous red color at that. So it's promising. Wow, yeah. Straight away with smelling this, you're really transported to Tuscany. It definitely has the characteristic typical cherry aromas of the local Sangiovese grape. It also has aromatic herbs as well that surrounds it. When I smell this, really, I am transported to Tuscany. The warm cypress trees as well you find in the hills of Tuscany out there, especially in summer. Somewhat of the earth, the dust of a hot summer in the hills of Tuscany. I'm probably a bit biased because I know it's from Tuscany and I love Tuscany. But when I smell this wine, I'm literally there, transported. Because it's Sangiovese's signature, lifted up with fruit characters from a bit of Cabernet and a bit of Merlot as well. But let's taste. Yeah, it has this really inviting acidity and burst of fresh cherry juice flavors, followed by also a burst of spices as well. I'm getting quite a lot of citrus elements as well, some orange and lime flavors that join the fresh herbal scents to surround the dominant fruity feel. So some spices, some citrus as well. It's quite light and vibrant as well, some grip to the tannins. You will notice some personality overall. It teases your palate with this acidity and this granulous yet relatively smooth tannic texture. So this is purely a wine of pleasure, a very quaffable wine. It's a Toscana Rosso, but it certainly has the signature of the Chianti terroir in it, a wine for food, for Italian dishes of course, but for simple, worryless enjoyment in a few words. No complications, it's just great and enjoyable, yet there are different facets to it and some complexity and some depth from the different elements that I was describing. Just a wine to enjoy, well-made, pure expression of the fruit, and invitation to visit Tuscany, at least in your thoughts, in your mind, and a perfect pairing with a good Italian pasta dish, a good piece of grilled meat, a tomato and mozzarella salad, for example. I mean, it just cries for me dolce vita of Italy, the sweet life of Italy. You taste it, you're there. And now let's look at a more traditional Chianti appellation wine, a wine made in the traditional heart of Tuscany, of winemaking in Tuscany, in this area called Chianti, right in between Florence and Siena, in the hills inland of Tuscany, where it gets quite warm in summer. It's made in the pure traditional local fashion, using traditional Chianti blend with the iconic Tuscan grape that I was mentioning before, Sangiovese. That's to the core of the wine, helped by the acidity of Canaiolo, that's quite an acidic grape, and the body of another local grape, Colorino. So there's a bit of a touch, but really a touch of Syrah and Merlot as well for extra complexity and smoother smoother texture as well. It is made by the same producer as the previous wine. The wine is called Borgofiero, understand, the proud village or the proud town, because it is made from this locale that is called Lastra Assigna, a proud medieval looking fortified village that was originally built as a military outpost in the Middle Ages. So loads of tradition behind this wine. Let's pour it. Wow, indeed. So this wine has a really nice and vibrant ruby color, not overly intense as we expect. Chianti is not the bigger type of wine, not like the Sicilian wine we had before, but it's definitely dark and intense and vibrant. Yes, definitely looking appealing. Let's sniff it. The wine really throws interesting and typical notes of sour cherry, which is really the signature aroma of the Sangiovese grape. When you detect this sour cherry in this fashion, the generosity of sour cherries, this is signed as a Chianti. Some interesting floral notes as well. I'm getting some violet flower, hints of red currant as well, or the flowers of red currant, if you can imagine that. I like the spiciness that shines through as well, notes of pepper, a bit of herbal characters, the thyme, the rosemary, slightly minty and grassy as well. A bit like basil really, and a rather lifted and vibrantly fruity aromatic profile, a bit herbal. Quite a lot going on here. The flowers, yeah, it's interesting. Let's taste. And really, to summarize it, the juiciness is the outstanding feature in this Borgofiero Chianti. Really a pleasing feature. Tannins are a little grapey, which intensifies the juiciness, but it's a good thing here that it's a little grapey. It gives wine personality essentially, and it accentuates the herbal and spicy flavors. Loads of aromatic herbs, some green pepper as well. All of this gives a rather explosive burst of flavor intensity from the mid palate on. The sour cherry fruit is really explosive and intense here, really present and really vibrant. Although it's milder and riper than I anticipated from the nose. The nose was really on the bitter sour cherry side, while the palate actually features riper red berry characters, really vibrant, really fresh, really juicy. Yes, ripe strawberry and generous cherry for a couple of images. I really like how composed the wine is on the palate as well. A certain austerity that we expect from Chianti that will make this wine particularly food friendly as well, yet it also has some generosity from the berry fruit characters, and then all the spices will make this a fantastic pairing with your favorite Italian dishes, but not only the hard cheese in particular. I'm visualizing cheese to go fantastically, wonderfully with this wine, and any type of antipasti, and really any Mediterranean style dish, the Greek cuisine, maybe Turkish cuisine. I'm visualizing also a moussaka, eggplant moussaka from Greece. That would be a fantastic dish. Not for the hugely powerful dishes, this wine more for the medium flavored type of dishes. We are staying in beautiful Chianti as well. It's so beautiful and comforting there. Why wouldn't we? With a producer that is called Ricasoli, and that's certainly what you can call a historic producer in the Chianti wine region. They are a noble family with a long noble family history that is tracked back to the 12th century. They own a medieval castle as well, a whole castle that is called Brolio Castle. Brolio, I'll show you in a minute, is indeed the name of the wine, named after the Brolio Castle, hence the name of this wine. A huge 3,000 acres property around the castle as well, with olive trees, woods, fields for cereals as well, and vineyards. The proper historic nobility of Tuscany and the associated huge estate around the castle. They make a range of different wines, of course, with great skills for winemaking from the heart of the Chianti area. This is a Chianti Classico, so the very heart of Chianti appellation, and the best and most typical expressions are generally found in Chianti Classico. This is also a Riserva, so a reserve wine. So they select the best grapes, the best vineyards, and they reserve them. They put them aside and put them in their reserve flagship wine, this Brolio Chianti Classico Riserva. And those of you who have been in the club for a little while may remember that we had this wine already, but the previous vintage, the 2016 vintage, back in our selection in 2019, this is the newer 2017 vintage, in case you're wondering. This has a slightly evolved, more evolved color. This is a 5-year-old wine already. It's been matured for you. You can see that with delicate orange hues to it, but it still looks really vibrant. It's quite dark, really inviting. Loads of purple hues as well. So quite a complex, gorgeous, appealing color to this wine. And let me tell you, the smell is even more inviting. Straight up, it's extremely yummy to smell it. It's bursting with those gorgeous ripe cherry aromas, really like if you pick a cherry from a tree in a warm afternoon and you just open up the cherry and smell the inside of it. That's exactly what this wine smells like. Absolutely gorgeous smell. It's got some aromatic herbs as well in it, the thyme, the rosemary, touches of vanilla. It's a little bit oaky, there's pepper, there's mixed spices as well. A bit of a strawberry liqueur, a bit of an orange liquor smell to it as well. I really love this orange liqueur, a bit of a Cointreau liqueur type of smell. Really phenomenal aromatic profile here, powerful, bursting with fruit, comforting as well, warming, generous, fruity, citrusy. Wow, there's a lot going on, but let's taste. Wow, and yeah, let me tell you that the story about this wine's liveliness really continues through to the palate. It just explodes in your mouth with all this fruity goodness. Really, the cherry and orange liqueur thing that I was mentioning on the nose explodes and becomes extremely obvious when you taste it. Also, the spices are revealed when you taste it. The type of aromatic herbs that you find in the south of France or in the hills of Tuscany also. I think there's a solid touch of fresh basil and oregano in there as well. So it's a little minty, it's a little grassy, it's mid-body. It's not a huge wine, but it's quite a big for a Chianti, a Riserva dense Chianti wine. It's structured enough to be powerful and enjoyable, and really dense aromatically is an outstanding feature here, the aromatic density. Now, tannins are smooth with just the amount of grape on the side of your mouth to be lively and interesting, and the acidity is really a standout feature, somewhat biting, but more importantly, very juicy again. The cherry analogy, it's got the sweetness feel of a cherry that a cherry would have being so fruity, but it's also got this zingy crisp acidity that you find in a cherry, which makes fantastic balance. Yum. I absolutely love this 2017 vintage. I love the 16, the 17 is even, perhaps in my memory, even better. So fruity, so juicy, packed full of flavors and concentration. An outstanding Chianti wine. Wow, yeah, I enjoy this wine. Chiantis are fantastic, very complex, but this one particularly so. Okay, so after enjoying the wine wonders of Tuscany, let's head right north to the other famous and best area for making wine in Italy, and that's the region that is called the Piedmont, home of the outstanding Nebbiolo grape, the rare local grape that's hardly ever grown anywhere else outside of this particular area of Italy. No one pretty much grows Nebbiolo anywhere else in any other region or Italy or around the world. So that's a rare local grape that we love, that is scarce, that is very demanded globally. It makes all the Italian wine connoisseurs and wine connoisseurs dream about those type of rare wines. That's especially true when we talk about Barbaresco and Barolo. We'll get to the Barolo in a second. Now, the winery here is called Sorelle de Nicola. Understand, the sisters of Nicola. It's a small family project, very Italian in its approach, making wine with the family from small vineyards. A project started back in 1944, so just as exiting or finishing Second World War. A project that was started back then by a woman called Maria Feyles and her son-in-law at the time called Antonio de Nicola. Antonio is still alive in his 80s now. They only had a small vineyard initially around the village, beautiful village and so prestigious village of Barbaresco, in the heart of some of the best terroirs in Piedmont, but they've done well over time and acquired always small vineyards in different parts of the area, including in Barolo, and they acquired a small vineyard in the Langhe area, a vineyard of Nebbiolo, from which this wine is made. So they are what we call non-interventionists in the wine world, people that don't interfere. They are minimalist in their winemaking approach. They do very, very little that is not, that is too technical. They go really natural, unfiltered, this type of project. Just let the wine and the terroir express itself. Simple winemaking techniques. They do apply Slovenian oak. They have large oak barrels to mellow and mature this wine. That's pretty much all they do for making this wine. Wow, the coffee in this wine. Yeah, it certainly smells like I've just made myself an espresso smelling this wine. Such a strong aroma of coffee straight away. So this is an 8-year-old wine from vintage 2013, so it's been matured quite a bit already. You will notice some brown and orange hues to it, but it still looks fresh and vibrant still. It looks to be in a bit of a lighter style, which is to be expected from Nebbiolo. Nebbiolo is sometimes called the Italian Pinot Noir, so a bit of a lighter style, even though the color is still quite dense from those brownish orange hues that it's got. But certainly the nose is not shy or tamed at all. It smells really intense, really explosive, lots of coffee, as I was telling you before. Herbal characters and spices as well are the dominant characters. It strongly smells like dried herbs, like dry oregano, as I was talking about before, but a lot of oregano you will notice in here. A little minty and lifted as well, but also a little grassy, a little vegetal. I love the laurel leaf, I think is definitely present in there, or a bit of a bouquet garni. So mixed dried herbs, there's a lot of this here. A lot of sweet almond as well, a bit of raspberry liqueur. Almonds is certainly present here, a bit like an amaretto liqueur. There's herbs like anisey, fennel, thyme, the basil again. I mean, there's a lot going on here. Lots of cherries, lots of strawberry jam as well. I'm just going to stop here. There's so much going on. We need to move on and taste. Wow, and yeah, wow, the intensity in this wine is just absolutely mind-blowing. Now, Langhe Nebbiolos are famous for giving you generally a taste of a great Italian Nebbiolo grape, the grape behind the famed Barolos and Barbaresco. But for some producers, Langhe Nebbiolos are a bit of a lesser wine than the greater wines from those prestigious appellations. But man, here, this is not a lesser Nebbiolo at all. It may not come with one of the top prestigious appellations, but the quality, the powerful acidity, the concentration here is absolutely huge. That huge acidity really lifts up all the fruity power that the wine has as well. There's a huge push on the palate for herbal and a bit of flavors of tar that are the signature of Nebbiolo. It's on the background, but it's there, and it pushes stronger and stronger in flavors. As you taste the wine, you will notice that the wine develops and pushes with heap and heap and heap of flavors on the palate. So let's go through some of those flavors that you will find. The almond is certainly there, the berry liqueur, then there's a plum, there's a bit of prune, there's a bit of cherry seeds as well, there's a bit of bay leaves, definitely the orange peel, the violet, the blossoms, flower blossoms. I mean, all of those flavors that I've talked about in all of those other wines are packed up in here. Huge complexity with so many layers of flavors, huge in length, it is huge in concentration, huge in complexity, huge. You could just say this wine is huge. I was saying with the appearance that it might appear a little bit lighter, but it's in fact extremely big. We're staying in Piedmont here to the north of Italy to bring you what might be the jewel in the crown of this selection. Yes, indeed, this is a rare wine from Barolo, this prestigious village I was telling you about that makes all wine connoisseurs around the world dream and salivate. And it's a wine from a particular reputable sub-area of the Barolo appellation around the village that is called Serralunga d'Alba, one of the highest spots in this region, with a very limestone rich and sandy soil, which makes generally this village is famous for making very precise and expressive expressions of Barolo. So both precise but quite powerful as well. Sciavenza, which is the producer, shares a similar story to the one we just talked about with the Langhe Nebbiolo. It started in 1956 as a small family project initiated by two brothers called Vittorio and Ugo Alessandria, and it's remained a small project owned and managed by the family, making wines with a few small vineyards scattered here and there in the area. Very Italian approach. We've selected what we thought was one of their very best wines in their range from this Barolo del Comune di Serralunga d'Alba. Understand Barolo from the town of Serralunga d'Alba, one of the very reputable village names for the people that know Barolo. This is one of the top villages in the area. Let's taste. And this is a 2016 vintage, so 5-year-old wine already, so you will notice some slightly brownish and orange hues, rather similar color to the previous Nebbiolo that we've just tasted. But let's smell. Wow, and the standout feature here that really dominates the aromatic profile is the smell of almond. I was definitely getting some almond, but here the almond is definitely the dominant feature. It really smells like an amaretto liqueur, but much more subtle than an amaretto. Amaretto has really a strong aroma. Here it's almond, but it's a fresher almond, maybe, yeah, pure fresh almond, maybe slightly toasted as well. There's some pomegranate as well, a touch of raspberry coulis, so ripe, slightly cooked raspberry. But some blueberry as well, so still fresh and vibrant as well. Discreet peppery spices, some mint, a touch of earthiness as well. So it's somewhat both powerful but also elegant and refined to smell. Every component is just expressed for itself and nothing seems to overpower anything except perhaps this almond aroma. But almond is not a really powerful, dominant flavor because it's a subtle and fresh almond, not a roasted and really strong almond flavor. So it just surrounds everything, and then every note is really defined and precise to the aromatic profile. Loving the smell of this wine. Let's taste. Wow, and indeed this might be a slightly superior wine by its definition. The definition of its flavors is just outstanding and a little bit superior. We had a lot of concentration and a lot of power here, still very big and powerful and intense, but the definition of all the aromas is simply outstanding here. It doesn't smell impressive all that much because it's not all that powerful, but when you taste it is when everything happens. All the power and the concentration literally hits you in the face almost, and it's huge acidity, loads of very dense and velvety tannins in there, some grape to the finish, a smooth texture overall, the explosion of flavors in outstanding almond, loads of fruit, lots of mixed berry liqueur flavors blended with loads of mixed spices as well, the sweet spices type, the cinnamon, the cardamom, but also herbal spices, the laurel, the oregano, a bit of a basil. There's definitely some earthiness is there as well, some forest floor characters, and the standout feature for me is also what appears like a bit of an ashiness as well. You get a bit of a drying feeling from the texture that evokes wood ashes, and I love that. It makes the wine really a bit savory. It's still mellowed by all the fruit that it's got, but this ashy texture gives something magical, the 5% magic. So loads of different components backed up into this wine. It's really extremely long and lingering as well. I mean, you can taste it after 2, 3, 4 minutes, I can still find some components that the wine is giving away still on the back of my palate. So it's fruity, it's spicy, it's acidic, it's lively, and so deep in concentration. So explosive, I would summarize this wine into. We had huge, this is explosive. And loads of different sensations, the definition, the complexity of a great Barolo wine. And I was about to forget, but you can definitely hold on to this wine for as long as you want. This can age for 10 years, probably 20. Barolos are famous for aging really well. It's such a good balanced example that you can hold on to this for 20 years easily if you'd like. And here it is, what a journey through Italy we have had. I'm truly always amazed when tasting a variety of different Italian wines from different regions and just thrown at you like this. Every bottle, every cru, so that's every terroir, every producer is really a new discovery. You generally taste something absolutely different every time you try a new wine. And I think we've demonstrated this here. It's always fun to find out what the wine is made of and who made it and what is the terroir like, and link this up to what the wine actually tastes like. There's countless wine stories in Italy and literally a delicious and tasty surprise in every bottle of Italian wine that we taste. And we've definitely, I think, demonstrated this here with this beautifully diverse yet tailored yet refined selection, just to bring you some of the best that Italian wine has to offer. From the hugely concentrated Sicilian wine that we tried at the beginning to the north, those wines that have so much definition and character, through the more classic and traditional Tuscan wines. Those wines couldn't be any more different, yet they have in common to be all genuine, very concentrated and very tasty, and all representative of their origin. A true taste of Italy, the Italian sunshine, I would say the joie de vivre from Italy, or the dolce vita, like they would say in Italy. It's our joy to bring those wines to you. Enjoy, thanks for watching, and I will see you soon in the wonderful world of wine. Salute, cheers, ciao ciao.